last decade was the best decade, right? Wait, what do you mean the 90s were 20 years ago? This is not... What? I don't know how to feel right now. Howdy everybody, this is Carla. I wanted to do something different last week, but then I spent most of my week being obsessed with the Power Rangers trailer. If you guys saw my previous video, you know that I actually really like the Power Rangers trailer that came out at New York Comic Con. The funny thing is that I love seeing other people react to it, because everybody sort of assumed that it was going to suck, and then seeing people be so surprised about it kind of makes me feel better about having thought that it would suck in the first place. So that's what my productive week has been. I basically spent the entire time just watching Power Rangers trailer reaction videos on YouTube, because that is how productive I am. So I haven't been able to shake this mentality off of the idea that one of the shows of my childhood is coming back to me in the form of a movie. So I decided, instead of going with something new this week, I'm just going to make a list of all of the shows and all the fandoms that I loved so much when I was a kid or when I was a teenager that I want to see adapted to the big screen. So that's gonna be what I'm gonna talk about today. I'm sorry if I make your nostalgia too overwhelming, and for all you young'uns out there, shut up, the 90s were better, get over it. Seriously, the 90s had some goddamn awesome cartoons and TV shows and books, and it makes me feel so nostalgic that I just want to talk about them right now, and that's what I'm gonna do in this list. So warning, this list is not in any particular order. It's not a top 10, it's just a list of 10. Actually, that's not right. They're gonna be in alphabetical order because I'm borderline OCD that way. So in alphabetical order, but not in order of prominence. So I try not to classify which ones I am most eager to see on the big screen than the others. It's just all of them. Like any single one of them that comes to the big screen, I'm gonna be over the moon about it. So I'm starting off with a book series that I loved. This isn't so much a childhood fandom, it's more of a teenhood fandom, I guess. I read these books when I was on my way out of high school and in my first years of college. And it's the Artemis Fowl series by Owen Colfer. I love Artemis Fowl, you have no idea, and my friends think it's so weird because this is a series that's for kids, and it's for kids a lot more than, say, a Harry Potter would be, because with Harry Potter you sort of grow with the character, and you do the same with Artemis, but it feels much slower, and it's a world that's even more fantastical than Harry Potter, if that can even be a thing. The jokes are more for children, so it's very, I would say it's very akin to maybe the Percy Jackson books in that sense. The jokes are simpler, there's more pop culture references and stuff like that than there would be in Harry Potter, whereas Harry Potter got a lot darker towards the end of the series. Artemis Fowl sort of stayed more or less with the same tone than that first books had, even though the character was growing up. So people look at Artemis Fowl and go like, that's for children. Yes, it's for children. Why does that mean it's not good? It's an amazing series. It basically has to do with the central character is Artemis Fowl II, who is a billionaire genius evil mastermind. And if you're not intrigued by that premise, I don't know what you're doing. So basically, Artemis is an international criminal. He steals stuff, even though he's only 12, he's managed to, evade most of the justice agencies worldwide. And at the one time, Artemis sets out to steal an important device from the world of the fairies, which, by the way, there's a whole world of fairies living underground, right beneath our feet. And Artemis sets out to steal this magical device from them, and of course the fairies aren't having that, and they send troops to get the device back, and that's how the fairy world comes into contact with Artemis Fowl. That's just the first book. The other books get even better. If you're thinking about it and wondering what the hell is going on, what the hell is this book even supposed to be, it's really trippy, but it's also really freaking fun. And it's very different to have a main character that's actually a villain. Even though, you know, Artemis is just a kid, and through the books he gets, I hate to say that he gets better, but he gets better. As in, he becomes more of a good person, even though he still has certain evil mastermind tendencies, and he likes to manipulate people and manipulate circumstances, etc. But it's really cool to have a book from the point of view of the villain, at least to start with. Through all of these years, I've felt that Artemis Fowl is such an underappreciated series. If you haven't read it to your kids, for those of you who have kids, if you haven't read it to your kids, please get a hold of it. It's an amazing series for children. And really all I've ever wanted is to see Artemis and Holly, who is the female lead, on screen. This past year it was revealed that Disney is actually in the works at making an Artemis Fowl movie. Now, I put it on my list because I haven't seen much movement since then. They announced that Kenneth Branagh is going to be directing the movie, but then Kenneth Branagh is doing other stuff, so I don't know what's happening with this project. I do hope it gets made because Artemis Fowl is such a great series. I don't know if they're going to age him up a little or if they're going to stick with the idea that he's 12, but either way, I'm up for it. I love Artemis Fowl. It's one of the best book series for children, period. And I can't wait to see it on the big screen. Hopefully it will happen before I die. Just saying, Disney. The second fandom on my list is one that I mentioned last time in my previous video, which if you haven't seen, please do go watch it. And it's Captain Planet. Now, Captain Planet was this really cheesy, campy, hit you over the head with the environmental message cartoon from the 90s. It was a Turner cartoon, and it basically is the only reason why millennials even know anything about protecting the environment and recycling and that sort of stuff. Like, Captain Planet changed our lives in that sense. It's the reason why millennials are so invested in the environment. Honestly, I truly, honestly believe that it is. But the cool thing about Captain Planet is that even though the important part was the message, the characters were really awesome as well. You had 5 kids from 5 different corners of the world, so you have a lot of diversity in there already. Each of them had their own personality. Each of them was assigned to a different element, so you have earth, fire, wind, water, and heart. And yes, of course, everybody now makes jokes about the heart because it is useless a little bit. I mean, Mati could like talk to animals and crap, and it was like the useless superpower, but hey, you know what? Aquaman is getting awesome now, and everybody used to joke about Aquaman, and now everybody loves him because it's freaking Jason Momoa and he looks badass. So why can't they just do the same thing with the heart? Come on. Let's face it, it could be awesome. And that kind of superhero isn't really translatable in the modern world, I don't think. But I think there are ways that you can do Captain Planet with the characters and sort of make it a bit more realistic. If you don't believe me, go to fanfiction.net. There's Captain Planet fanfiction out there, and some of it is really awesome. And it goes to show not just the drama that is involved in having such a huge responsibility over the world for these kids, because they really are just kids, but also a way that Captain Planet can be done in a realistic fashion, and that you can sort of explore the darker side of these powers that they're given, and the fact that it would make anybody doubt themselves. I hate to sound like Spider-Man, but with great power comes great responsibility, and these are just kids. I know a lot of people don't know how a Captain Planet movie would be made, because mostly the kids didn't really do much of the world saving, and it was, in the end, they just called Captain Planet, and Captain Planet fixed everything for them, and I don't think you can do that in a movie, obviously. Like, nowadays, we look back and realize how much of a deus ex machina he was. But I think there's a way that it can be done right. I think there's a way that it can be done realistically. It has been done in fanfiction. I'm sure a good writer for a film studio can pull it off. And I really, really want to see this movie. Every other year we get news that, oh, it's in development, it's gonna happen this time, and then it never happens. So please, please, Hollywood, make a Captain Planet movie, and make a good Captain Planet movie, for God's sakes, because we need that. Captain Planet was basically my first introduction to what diversity is. I didn't know anything about Russia until I saw Captain Planet. I hardly knew anything about Africa until I saw Captain Planet. They even did an episode about HIV. They did an episode about drugs. Captain Planet was a good thing, even in its cheesy campiness. So I believe it can be done. Please, Hollywood, do it, do it, do it, do it. I need to see this movie before I die. Number 3 is Daria. Now, Daria is another show that's more of a teenhood show than a childhood show, I guess. It was on MTV when MTV actually had good content. It's a show about Daria Morgendorffer, who's this, really morose, not really talkative, a bit antisocial, anti-humanity in general type girl. And it was just funny to see the juxtaposition of her and like everybody around her who did not think like her. Like, she had a sister who was like really preppy and a cheerleader, and everybody loved her and she was friendly and stuff, and Daria's just here like, whatever. At the time I felt really, really connected with her, because I've always been sort of really sarcastic, even though I'm a friendly person, mostly. I'm also really sarcastic, and my friends used to like point it out all the time. It's like, oh, here she comes again with the quip. So I felt a little bit like I related to Daria, and I think this is actually a show that would still be very current, honestly, in our culture right now, where we have all these cliques and groups and the hipsters and the cheerleaders and the jocks, and it's still happening. It's still a thing, especially with the rise of bullying and everything. So I think it would actually be a really good idea to bring Daria back. But most of all, I just want to see a real live action movie about Daria, because they had, a few years ago, they had, I don't know if it was for College Humor or what, but they had this small sort of trailer-like video of Daria starring Aubrey Plaza, who is amazing. And it was like perfection. It was basically perfection, and I really want to see like a full-length feature for that. I hope it happens at some point, because Daria's humor, it's still one of the funniest shows I remember, and I really wish that it could be on the big screen at some point. So please, MTV, listen to my prayer here. My 4th fandom that I'd love to see as a movie is Evangelion. As in Neon Genesis Evangelion, it's an anime series, and I know it's a little bit of a cheat, because Evangelion is actually getting movies made right now. It's still, Rebuild of Evangelion is still happening. We still have one more movie to go, the last one. So it is out in theaters, but it's still animated, and I want a live action Evangelion movie to be made. They've been toying with this idea for decades. I'm not even kidding. I was watching the show and they were already talking about a possible Hollywood adaptation. It's funny because the 3rd Evangelion movie, The Rebuild of Eva, came out, the 3rd one, and like a year later we got Pacific Rim, which is basically Evangelion except less interesting, and it was almost a carbon copy of everything that happened in the 3rd Evangelion movie. And I keep thinking, dude, people love monster movies, right? And people love giant robots, right? I mean, Pacific Rim is proof of that, basically. Why not do Eva in a good way, where you can introduce really, really dramatic and deep aspects to the giant robot movie, basically. Eva is one of the best mixes of this that I've seen in my life, and Eva is basically, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but Evangelion is basically my favorite piece of fiction ever, from anything. Books, movies, games, anything, Eva is at the top for me. When I watched the show and the original movies when I was a teenager, it basically blew my mind. It changed my perception of the world in general and of people in general especially, and I want that to be in a Hollywood movie, to show that you can have your giant monsters and you can have your giant robots, but you can also have a deep, dark study of the human condition in the movie at the same time. So yes, it's a bit of a cheat because Eva is getting theatrical releases still, but I want to see it done live action. I want to see it done by Hollywood with Hollywood budgets, and maybe introduce people to a deeper idea of what anime can do, because people know anime nowadays, but they just don't know what the depth of it is, and I think Eva can do that. I normally don't recommend Eva to people because it's so deep and just disturbing for many people. I think you have to have a special kind of personality to deal with Eva, but at the same time, if they make a blockbuster Eva movie, I think it can be done in a way that it's palatable to a wider audience, and I do want Eva to have a wider audience because it is my favorite piece of fiction of all time. So please, maybe someday. It was actually doing very well in development. We had like concept art and all kinds of stuff, and then it just disappears, and every few years somebody will mention it at some convention and it's like, oh, we're still working on it. No, you're not. Can you get your asses in gear, please? Number 5 is Final Fantasy VIII, and this one is a little bit different than Eva because I don't really want a live action movie of Final Fantasy VIII, but Final Fantasy VIII is my favorite Final Fantasy, and I hate how people tend to put it down. Hey, Final Fantasy VIII made Squaresoft a lot of money, okay? It might not have made as much as Final Fantasy VII, but 8 was a great story all on its own, and I know that people didn't like the romance and blah blah blah, whatever. I like the romance. I want to see 8 done right, and I hate that 7 got a movie. Which, mind you, it deserves a movie. 7 is really good as well, but why can't they do the same with 8? And now they're making another movie for another Final Fantasy. I'm like, 8 is right there. It's so great. It's such a great movie. It's the second most popular Final Fantasy game out there. Just look at fanfiction.net. How many fanfics there are for Final Fantasy VIII. And I hate that people don't recognize it. And I would love to see a movie about 8 in the same vein that 7 did, because you play 7 as a game and then you watch the movie and it's almost continuous, right? But I think the plot of 8 itself could be made into a movie. So just take the storyline of 8 and make it into a movie, and the characters of 8 are so great, and just the lore of the gardens, the lore of this vast conspiracy about sorceresses, it deals with time loops so well. I want to see 8 done in a movie version. If it's animated, even better, in the style that 7 was. But I just want this to happen, and I don't understand why people don't like 8, and it hurts my heart that people don't like this. So please, just, if you like Final Fantasy VIII, please comment below and let me know that I'm not alone in the world, because honestly, I feel like I'm alone in the world. I think 8 it's definitely my favorite Final Fantasy that we've had so far. I'm not a gamer. I don't play the games. I just like the story. When we were playing 8, I would actually just sit behind my brother and watch him play. I didn't actually do any of the playing, but I love the story. It's such a great story. It has a little bit of everything, and I don't understand why people keep putting it down like it's, you know, the annoying little brother to Final Fantasy VII. That's not fair. So please, if you're a fan of Final Fantasy VIII, please comment and let me know, because I seriously feel like I'm alone in this and it makes me really sad. Number 6 is actually The Real Adventures of Jonny Quest, which is different from Jonny Quest the original. It was a series that premiered in the 90s. It had 2 seasons. It was cut short for stupid reasons that I hate, but it was a really great series. And it's a bit of a cheat, because I know they have announced that they're working on a Jonny Quest movie, and actually I think Robert Rodriguez is attached to it, and every once in a while he says something about it. But from everything I've heard from him, it's a movie about the 60s show, which, don't get me wrong, I also loved. But I think going back to the 60s show is not a good idea. It's kind of a boys' club, in a sense, the characters weren't as fleshed out as I would have wanted them to be. It was an adventure show, and shows in the 60s didn't really care all that much about. Especially if they were for kids, they didn't care all that much about stuff like representation or female empowerment, that sort of stuff. I liked the 60s show, but my biggest love has always been The Real Adventures, which is the 90s show. It was great because it had the same characters, except they were a little bit more grown up. They were teenagers instead of kids, which meant that they could actually do stuff without needing their parents to save them, which is a complaint that people often get about the 60s series. And they had Jessie, who is amazing. One of my favorite female characters of all time is Jessie Bannon. She's Royce's daughter, and there's such a great story of friendship in there that I just love. They, even in just 2 seasons, they took the time to develop the character so well, and it was so much more modern. You had this idea that Dr. Quest is not just this globe-trotting millionaire, he's actually a doctor of the paranormal who's traveling to study all these phenomena, which makes a lot of sense. It explored so many different phenomena, it didn't just make them up, although, yeah, sometimes they were made up, but a lot of real mysteries, not real, but mysteries that we have in our current time that people still believe in. The show explored those, and it was just so much fun. And they had Quest World, which I know the second season crew didn't really like Quest World. I liked it. I thought it was a great idea, and you know, back in the 90s, you saw computer-generated images in a TV show and you went like, whoa! Obviously, looking back on them, they're not all that great, but they were actually pretty damn good back in the day. We could do so much more with just that idea of Quest World right now in our world, in our current modern time, that I think it's a missed opportunity that they're not doing the movie based on The Real Adventures. Also, since we're talking about Power Rangers already, The Real Adventures of Jonny Quest is one of the best opening songs of all time. Just look at the YouTube videos of people reacting to the Power Rangers trailer and you'll realize how important the opening music is. And Jonny Quest has that factor. The Real Adventures has that factor, so please, if the movie with Robert Rodriguez does well, which honestly I'm a little iffy about because I don't really like Rodriguez's movies all that much, but if that movie does well, maybe they can move it forward to a point where a few years later they can do The Real Adventures. Maybe. I would love that. The Real Adventures is one of my biggest fandoms of all time. I actually still, much like with Captain Planet, I still go back and read Jonny Quest fanfiction every once in a while, and The Real Adventures is just the best as far as I'm concerned. And as a child of the 90s, I want to see my childhood on screen, so I want The Real Adventures. Please. Number 7 is one that I'm pretty sure I've mentioned in videos before, and it's The Adventures of Shirley Holmes. This is more of a pipe dream to me because I felt that the series, when it was cancelled after 4 seasons, it was cancelled sort of abruptly and the ending wasn't very satisfying. So I've always wanted them to do like 20 years later sort of reunion movie, and that's the kind of thing that I want to see. I know the leads of the Shirley Holmes Adventures, Meredith Henderson and John White, are really good friends. Still, like through the years, they've remained good friends, so I wish we could see something from them even now and be like, oh, that's right, let's just do this movie so we can wrap up the series for all our fans. It would be really good, honestly. Maybe sort of like a 20th anniversary thing. I think it came out in 98, so we have about 2 years to go. I don't know, maybe. Hopefully, that's what I'm hoping for. Shirley Holmes was one of my favorite shows. I have the entire show on DVD and I still rewatch it to this day. It's for kids, but it actually really holds up when you think about it. I won't go into the details because I explained it in a previous video before, but it's just such a great show. It was such a great show for kids. It had so many positive things to it, and I would love to see the characters a little bit more grown up now and sort of still dealing with the relationships between them and the mysteries that pop up, maybe in a more mature light now. So that's my suggestion. Number 8 is the Thundercats, which again, it's one of those shows that has repeatedly been theorized to have been in development for a movie. Before, mostly it was that the technology wasn't up to par, I guess. But come on. Now we're making movies where animals are the main characters and they actually look like animals and it doesn't look stupid. See the Jungle Book? We can do the Thundercats now. Come on. Can you imagine how many people would freak out if you just put out a trailer where you hear in the background the words Thundercats! Thundercats! Oh! People would freak out. I'm just saying. I know it's been in development for a long time and it hasn't happened yet, but come on! If you're reviving 90s shows to take advantage of the nostalgia factor, Thundercats is the one to go! It is the big one! Come on! And I love the Thundercats. I thought the characters were so great. Each one of them had a different sort of animal that they were like half-breeds of, and each one of them had their own personalities. And come on, fun fact, when I was a kid, I was terrified of Mamra. It was the stuff of my nightmares. Like, I would actually have nightmares about Mamra, and I would wake up crying and have to go crawl into my mother's bed. Mamra was so damn creepy, you guys. And I think it could be an awesome adventure / horror movie if it were ever made. Come on, we have the technology now. Why not do this? If you're capitalizing on nostalgia, this is the big one. Hollywood, get on it! Come on, what the hell are you waiting for? I don't understand it. I'm sick and tired of hearing that, oh yes, we're working on a Thundercats movie and then nothing happens. Please, come on. Do it, Hollywood, you can do it. Who wouldn't want to see Leono and Jatara and Pantro and the twins on screen, and Momura would be freaking creepy, and it's just such an intense sci-fi adventure horror story. I don't understand why this hasn't been greenlit and why this isn't happening like ASAP. We need this to happen. Speaking of cartoons of my childhood about half-breeds that needs to happen, I'm about to blow your mind because everybody remembers the Thundercats, right? But how many of you actually remember the next one? It's number 9. And it is the TigerSharks. Yes, you're now wondering what the hell I'm talking about. The TigerSharks is a cartoon that wasn't released on its own. It was released as a part of a cartoon series called the Comics Strip. It was actually released alongside other comics such as the Karate Cat, which by the way I also love, but I don't want that one to be adapted. But the TigerSharks was a series about this group of people who lived in an underwater colony of sorts, and they had to defend it. And in order to defend it, they would actually go into this water-filled chamber that would turn them into fish half-breeds. So you, not just fish, you also had sea mammals, but just sea animals half-breeds. So you have these people who are fully human, and then they go into this tank, and they become half shark, half dolphin, half walrus. I actually like that one better than the Thundercats. I was kind of sad that it never got an order for a full series. The Thundercats and the Silverhawks were the ones that caught people's attention the most, but I was really into the TigerSharks, and I think that could actually be done in a really awesome way. So that's my number 9 for all the reasons I said about the Thundercats, but the TigerSharks I actually liked better, and they got no respect when I was a kid, so I want them to get some respect now and have them make them into a movie. Come on, people transforming into sharks? Sharknado is like a huge thing. Why can't you just do a serious version of it and actually have people transforming into fish? And I know how ridiculous that sounds, but again, I remind you, Aquaman is a big deal now. So don't come complaining to me about how fish aren't important. And that's my number 9. And my number 10, I hope I'm not alone in this, but my number 10 is The Legend of Zelda. Again, I'm not much of a gamer, but I like the storylines. And The Legend of Zelda is one of those games where they take such care with the storyline that I just find myself entranced by it every time. Ideally, I want them to do a live-action movie of the Ocarina of Time storyline because that's my favorite. But any Zelda storyline is amazing, really. The thing about Zelda is that it's not just the video games, there was also a cartoon series that was awesome. I don't want them to adapt the cartoon series because the cartoon series is more for kids, but I just want to see Link and Zelda on screen fighting Ganondorf and looking for the Triforce pieces. I want to see Link on screen. Link has been, since I was 10 years old, Link has been one of my fictional boyfriends. I love Link. He's so great. I think it was Ocarina that cemented my utter love for Link. I need to see Link on a big screen. Please Hollywood, do this for me. You want women to flock to your movie because your main character is so hot? Link is your man. That is all. And it's got such huge brand recognition, and I don't understand why it hasn't been done. Now I know that it's because Nintendo is wary about licensing their properties for Hollywood movies. They did it with Mario Bros. It was a freaking disaster. I know, I understand. I think nowadays it can be done. And I think because they're already working on a Pokemon movie, maybe the next step will be a Zelda. Probably. I mean, can you imagine how cinematic that movie is? People say that the Sword and Sandals movies don't work anymore. Zelda is like the next Lord of the Rings. I'm just saying. It could be incredible. And I do hope that if the Pokemon movie does well, that maybe they will give it a go with Zelda, or maybe they will give it a go with Mario Brothers or any other properties really. Nintendo has some amazing properties, but the one that is the most cinematic in my opinion is Zelda. I love the games. I love the cartoon when I was a kid. I love the manga. I'm totally going to buy the Ocarina manga when the special edition comes out. I think this November. I am totally buying it. I think it's such a cinematic story. It's such an intense story. It's such a great story that it blows my mind that it hasn't been made before. And I wish Nintendo could see that there's a real possibility of Zelda being a huge runaway hit. I mean, who doesn't know who Zelda is except for the people who think that Link is Zelda, which, why are you stupid? But really, everybody has heard of The Legend of Zelda. Come on. Everybody has heard about it. It would be a huge hit. It has to happen, Nintendo. And if they can make Zelda kick-ass as well, that would be a great thing. That is my list of 10 fandoms from my childhood and teenhood that I would love to see adapted into movies. Hopefully some big executive at Hollywood is watching this video and will realize what an opportunity they have in their hands. I know that's not true, but girl can hope. So please, if you are into any of these ideas, comment below. Tell me what you think. Tell me what your favorite fandoms as a kid were, and whether you would like to see them made into Hollywood movies. I know a lot of people sort of recoil from that idea because the whole thing of please don't touch my childhood, you're going to ruin it, please stay away. And I get it, I get that feeling too, but for me it goes away really fast. So I just get this utter joy of seeing the characters that I love, the characters that I grew up with on screen. So I would hope that they make these, and I hope that they make them right. I've been burned before, so I don't know, I'm just putting the idea out there that these things need to happen, especially since they're capitalizing on nostalgia right now, with the Ghostbusters and the Independence Days, etc. They're capitalizing on people's nostalgia, and I think these could be a good idea. So do comment below, let me know what your favorite fandoms were when you were a kid, whether you want to see them adapted into Hollywood movies, and what do you think of this idea of capitalizing on nostalgia? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Do you think Hollywood's just looking for their next cash cow and you hate it? Let me know below in a comment. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to talk about next week. Maybe it will be the Game of Thrones thing if I get my ass in gear with that, or maybe it will be a review of the latest Magnus Chase book, The Hammer of Thor, which just came out last week. And I finally got my copy of it, so I'm reading it right now. If I finish reading it by the time I record next week, I will probably talk about that, so keep those in mind. But as usual, if you want to suggest any topics to me, please comment below and tell me about it. If it's a topic that I know anything about, a geeky topic, be it movies, TV shows, books, anything geeky related, if I know anything about it, I will make sure to add it to my list of videos to make in the future. In the meantime, you can find me on social media. I am on Twitter and Instagram at girlsareweird with underscores between the words, and I am on Tumblr at girlsareweird with hyphens between the words. Yes, I am aware that every time I do this, it's exactly the same no matter whether it's an underscore or a hyphen, whatever. You can find me there. You can also find a Facebook page for this vlog at facebook.com/FreakingNarnia, and as usual you can visit my main website at FreakingNarnia.com. All my videos are up there, so if you want to catch up with everything I've done in the past, just go in there and take a look around. it's all uploaded there. I also have a Redbubble store where you can buy typography art based on quotes from my favorite movies, TV shows, and books. I'm a really huge geek for quotes, so if you're into that as well, be sure to check out my Redbubble stuff. You can use the art for all sorts of merch, including stickers, phone covers, laptop covers, tote bags, all sorts of merchandise in there so that you can use the art on. So please check it out and maybe purchase something if you're in the mood. And that's all for me today. I will see you guys next week with another video from all the way in freaking Narnia. Bye guys. How to steal an important, I hate to sound like Spider-Man, huge power comes huge response, a box of Thundercats and the working on a Pokemon Tumblr at Girls Who Read